Welcome to Discover a New Future, a show geared at empowering women to be the best versions of themselves. I'm your host, Faith Saunders. We're going to be talking about a topic today that impacts so many people, not only here in the United States, but all over the world, and that is trauma. Trauma does not discriminate. It impacts people from all over the world, and our guest today is going to be sharing about how she's helping people to heal in terms of addressing their trauma. I'm going to use a quote that came directly from my guest. It's, in order for us as a people to thrive in our lives, not just survive, and that's what I love, not just to survive, we need to be healed from our previous traumas, and the healing starts with awareness. I think that was so, so powerful. AKINLANA Burrowes, did I get it?
Yes, you
okay.
did. Congratulations.
Thank you. Her desire is to heal women and children so that they can break free from their intergenerational and systemic trauma. She endeavors to use the healing art of music, dance, drama, poetry, visual arts, and traditional art forms to break down the barriers of trauma. And I want you guys to guess, but I know you wouldn't guess, what AKINLANA does. AKINLANA.
Yes.
Does. Well, I know you wouldn't guess. She's a missionary.
A pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
How do you get to make that decision that this is what you want to do with your life?
Well, in a nutshell, it was really a God-sent decision that I've always been interested in going to Africa, since that is the home of my ancestors and my roots, and it was really deeply rooted in my heart to be able to go back and to live and to serve. And then when I was called to it, it wasn't an immediate acceptance of the call. It was delayed by about 7 years in a number of professions. And then ultimately, I accepted the call and went for a short-term missions trip to Cameroon and Chad, and that changed the trajectory of my life.
Oh, wow.
And I committed my life to the work.
Can I ask you what happened there that really kind of said, no, this is what I'm meant to do with my life?
Yes. There were a number of different things, but one really key example or experience that took place was literally when I touched down in Cameroon. I had already had some preconceived notions about what other people were sharing with me about being African American in Africa, and my desire was to be able to connect with the people there and to feel a sense of belonging and a sister kind of returning home.
Wow.
And it was really my prayer that that was there. And even though other people had shared that there might be a different experience. And literally the first day I'm in the airport, and a gentleman out of nowhere, a Cameroonian, came up to me while I was about to board my transportation to get into the village, and he literally just took my arm and said, "My sister."
Oh my God!
Like, and it was like literally a divine. I saw it as like a divine confirmation that yes, you are supposed to be here at this present moment. This is your connection. This is your family. This is your heritage. Welcome home.
Wow! So, I'm having goosebumps just hearing
that. And so I was fighting back the tears. Literally.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, because I felt that was God's way of saying that. This is the purpose, this is it. And the time.
Wow. But you know, that's so powerful, because so many individuals, especially women, we're seeking, you know, and we want to know what our purpose is. We talk about what our purpose is. And sometimes it's not that we don't know what our purpose is. It's, as you just said, we're running away from what we know that we're supposed to do, you know, and until you find that when you own that, that's when you get that peace, you know. And there are ways that there are ways to kind of affirm that this is what we're supposed to be doing if we pay attention to it.
Correct.
That's so awesome. So, what is your role as a missionary? What do you do as a missionary?
So it's multifaceted, but the past 7 years, I had been working in developing non-print versions of the scriptures in the mother tongue languages throughout Kenya and East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, preserving the culture, the history, the oral culture and traditions, as well as the language for posterity. And then also training those in the field to become self-sustainable in economic development, as well as being able to know how to use the equipment so that they can also do the work for times to come. Yeah.
Wow, that's so powerful, because so often when we hear missionary work, we just think of somebody out there spreading the word and, you know, saying you have to do this, you have to do that, and not realizing that you're helping people to be, as you said, sustain, have fulfilling lives, and embracing their culture, not bringing in our way of that. This is what way things should be, but actually embracing their culture in doing that. That's so awesome. Yeah. It's like I can see that must be such a rewarding.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of times what I literally did the first 2 years was I was a student of the culture, a student of the heritage, a student of the people, the language. Prior to bringing my expertise in audio engineering and training of audio engineering techniques. So it was really a lot of learning that took place prior to the actual teaching.
Wow, yeah. Wow, that's awesome. So you went to Africa, and you've been there 7 years?
Correct.
Wow. Well, you look like you're 7 years old.
Thank you.
So they've been there. So I guess based on the work that you do, you talk about not only being there doing the sound engineering work, but actually working with people to help them to sustain, develop skills that they can sustain themselves.
Correct.
I guess during that you have seen a lot of issues around trauma. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? What got you interested in that area?
Sure. So a lot of the times when I was out in the villages, most of the places that we did the recordings were out in the village. It's a more conservative society where women congregate with women and men socialize with men. So I spent a lot of time with the women and children. And during that time, I really met a lot of women who had experienced different levels of trauma in their life, from seeing their children murdered right before their eyes.
Lord. That's the ultimate.
A number of those who had experienced rape, who had experienced genocide, and were in war-torn situations. And it was something that continuously I was being made aware of from one village to the next. And I could not ignore it any longer, because I figured to myself, how do I even begin to talk about empowerment and begin to talk about the hope for the future, and how in my desire for being able to bring even God's promises of hope, that if their trauma was so great, that was so much louder than being able to acknowledge a hope for the future.
Wow.
And so it became a quest of mine to really be able to figure out, how do I remove that negative effect of trauma in people's lives, so that now it's not as much as such a noisy barrier for someone to actually now hear that there is hope, and that there is restoration, there is salvation for you.
That's so powerful, because again, with the trauma, sometimes most of the time people don't even know what trauma is, or that it's even impacting their abilities to, what I call, live, laugh, and love. You know,
yes.
You know. So it's wonderful. So what did you find out, or what techniques have you come to realize that would be helpful in helping these women to heal?
So while we were communing, a lot of times we were talking around arts, or some form of arts, from culinary arts to music, to, people were singing, they would teach me the songs, we were dancing. Some of the women were basket weaving. There's a lot of traditional art forms that became a tool of expression as well as communication. And when God began to show me those different aspects of community, that's when I said, okay, there's something there in the arts. And that really caused me to delve deeper into using the arts as a form of therapy, a form of expression, a form of communication.
So how does it work? Give us kind of a walkthrough in terms of how you would actually use the arts to heal.
Yeah, so one specific instance actually took place with a group of university students at Daystar University in Nairobi, Kenya. The students had an opportunity to design, write, act, direct a reenactment of the general election of 2007. And historically, the general election was a very traumatic one. At the end of the day, there was a backlash with the results, and it resulted in thousands of people being killed.
Oh, wow.
Over 500,000 people being displaced.
Wow.
And a lot of generations of historic, like, tribal relations being shattered.
Wow.
As a result of that in 2007. And so the children, or the university students, had an opportunity to finally be able to reenact it. And as a result, now begin to talk about it. They internalized and expressed their feelings and realized that they were not alone, because other people felt the same way. And that really opened the door for communication, for being able to identify with what feelings they were having, and now even putting a name to those feelings.
Wow.
So there's feelings of anxiety, feelings of post-traumatic stress disorder. There's feelings, symptoms that can actually be clinically treated and methodically really being able to be managed. And so that was an opening opportunity. So an amazing one of the ways that I saw that the arts could be used as a form of healing, and never something that can be used in a vacuum. And that's one thing I also
expand on that.
Right. So expressive arts therapy is using all different forms of the arts: music, dance, spoken word, visual arts, drama, and traditional art forms to really remove the negative effects of trauma in one's life and promote holistic healing of the mind, the body, the soul. And so when using that, it's never something that you want to just say, okay, we're only going to use the arts. It's something that's used collectively and comprehensively with other forms of mental health care.
Right.
And so we're part of a comprehensive team.
That's awesome.
And that's like the beauty of it, is that whenever there's a situation that some people may not necessarily respond solely to talk therapy, you have the arts that are so natural to our community that it helps to break that ground,
right,
where traditional talk therapy may not yet be able to. So once that ground is broken, then you can bring in all the other modalities to bring forth that healing.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. And it's done in such a non-threatening way, because when people are dancing, express whatever their form of expression is, it's in a sense, it's just performing into them, but it's healing at the same time. So, and having them to be able to make that connection between why you express yourself this way is because of ABC, as you said, putting a name to it, a word to what they're maybe feeling, because for many individuals, it becomes normalized, It's like, this is just who I am, not realizing
they're
that
on autopilot.
You're on, exactly, that there is something that is actually triggering that behavior, and that's maybe even most of the time limiting you in terms of your potential.
Correct.
Yeah. Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow. So what are some of your plans as you're thinking of going back? Okay.
Yeah.
Talk about that for me.
Whew, it's heavy, but it's multi-faceted. So there's my experience here as an African American in America, of working in the African American community to manage and to address the trauma that we have experienced here in this country, while also coordinating with those communities in Africa as well, that I've grown to love and grown to, that I've connected with, to also promote that healing across tribal lines, across national lines, and really being able to, it might sound a bit,
a big endeavor,
but like literally like heal the world. Yeah, because once there's one community that is hurting, we all as a world feel the pain.
Sometimes hurt people hurt others.
Exactly. And we want to break that cycle.
Right.
We want to break that cycle of hurt people, hurting people.
Wow. So how do you envision doing this? Because you're being trained in this form of therapy. So what do you have a plan in terms of integrating it when you go back?
Yes. So there are probably about 20 different communities that I'm already working with in Kenya. So my plan is to continue working with those communities, and now integrate the specific art forms that are germane to that community. Some may be dance, others may be the basket weaving, depending on that, and customizing a healing session specifically for them.
Can I come with you?
Yes, karibu, as we say in
what is
Kenya.
that?
Karibu.
Karibu
means welcome.
Oh, okay.
In Swahili, yes. So welcome.
That is so exciting. That's so exciting, so much, and not that it's just exciting, but purposeful work, and you can see difference in people. And sometimes those changes sometimes doesn't happen immediately, but it's the gradual. You see the change over a period of time.
Correct.
With bringing in, this just came to mind, bringing in these different form of aids to help people, does it sometimes conflict with their culture?
Bringing in the aids?
Yeah, like for example, like the expressive art therapy. Do some communities, based on their culture, is there maybe resistance to things like this?
Not really, because we would work with that artistic expression that is already natural to that community. So there are some communities that, yes, that may not necessarily use a visual art. But then there's something else that maybe even there are what they call nature sculptures that some communities use.
What's that?
And that is basically using trees as a form of expression. So they carve out trees and they will use flowers and they decorate them in such a way that it has a meaning.
Oh, wow.
And some of them are used like in times of mourning, some of them are used in celebrations, ceremonies, rite of passage. And so once you become a student of the culture and what their art form is, then the time begins now for you to customize something with that specific art form for healing purposes.
How can communities here, because I mean we're talking about Africa, right? Kenya specifically, but there's so many people who are hurting right here in our backyards.
Yes.
How do we start helping them to heal in terms of using expressive? How can communities start embracing this?
Well, we start by having awareness forums, and that can be as simple as a meeting, a town hall, or even small community meetings, neighborhood meetings. And really being able to now allow people to share their own personal stories, become comfortable with their voice and having their voice and their story validated. And then now from that point, being able to say there is help, that's not normal.
Right.
And that there are options to be able to not only manage them, but now be able to supersede and be able to move past them. Though whatever that area of barrier is from accomplishing the goals and the desires and the dreams that you've always wanted to have. And in our community, in our backyard, a lot of it even can be manifested in that economic crippling of a society.
That's so true.
And I'm realizing even now that if we are able to take that risk in valuing who we are, then we'll take economic risk as well. But if we're not even valuing who we are and we're working in a sphere of fear and intimidation, that's also going to roll over into taking economic risks and seeking empowerment and then seeking wealth. So that's
true.
Yeah.
That is so true. I do some work with women around employment, but I really strongly believe, based on what similar to what you're saying, is that how can we help someone to be successful employed when they have traumatic issues that are holding them back? So instead of talking about doing a resume, anybody can teach you or you could go online to do that. But let's talk about the things that are holding you back. You have a great resume, but you're showing up. The person on the resume is not the person walking through the door. Let's talk about what are some of the issues. How do you, do more of a self assessment to find out really what's holding us back. And I've had women crying and they talk about their past. Some people have been molested, etc., and how that's manifest, and having the aha moment, when they see that aha moment, how this is helping manifesting in their lives on a daily basis and holding them back, And as this goal, as you said, is not to heal in terms of that this is you're healed, but bringing awareness. I think that's 50% of the you're successful there when somebody's aware and they're getting more and they seek more help in terms of going beyond what's helping them to overcome what's happening. Yeah. So as you rightfully so, it's right here in our own backyards. And I just love this this approach. It's non-threatening, and in one sense could be fun, but again, people you can actually use it to actually help people to learn about themselves.
Right.
When I was reading your bio, you mentioned that when you heal women and children, you heal their land. What did you mean by that?
Women are so connected and influential in the domestic home. So when women hurt, the home hurts. Conversely, when women are healed, the relationships in the household are healed. The relationships in the community are healed. The relationships within the region are healed. That extends to the nation being healed. And when nations are healed, the whole world is healed.
Wow, so it's a trickling effect.
Yes.
Wow.
Those concentric circles of influence. So it starts with the women.
Right. And just one woman. Each of us can make a difference, That's awesome, what the work that you're actually doing. So what's your plan in terms of going back? When is that going to happen?
Once I finish my training, I'm studying now at Lesley University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's a mental health counseling master's with a specialization in expressive arts therapy. And upon receiving my license, then I will be able to engage once again the communities in Kenya, as well as in East Africa, and even coming back to the States because this is still my home. Right.
I was just going to ask you, where's home for you?
Home is where the heart is. I have so many homes, but yeah, it's multifaceted.
That's awesome. So when you're in Kenya, are you just stationed in one place or do you move around? I think when you were talking earlier, you said something about moving to different places.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah, so working where the need is, and there's a great need in many different communities. So I'd be working amongst them, and also being able to collaborate with mental health professionals who are already on the ground in Kenya and within East Africa to help them learn about integrating the arts into their existing practices.
Right.
So that's also a part of
the sustainability of it.
Sustainability, yes.
Yes.
Because I can't just do it all by myself.
Exactly.
There's so much need. So we're going to need a number of workers for that harvest.
Just train the trainer, and because they have the relationship, they, you know, they're there, they're the constant in the community. Wow, wow. So tell us a little bit about how people can actually learn more about what the work that you're doing and then be of assistance, being a missionary, folks. Yes. You know, people need help. So what, in terms of helping to sustain you so you could do your work, but also to help to sustain the work in the field also individually. How can people hear more about you and share with us?
Sure. Well, we can start with my website. I do have a website, expressiveartsheal.org.
Okay.
And I am compiling a number of resources about expressive arts therapy, as well as the work that I'm doing and the future work that I intend to propose for here in the in this U.S. as well as overseas in Africa. And so that's the first place. There are tons of resources out there about trauma, systemic trauma, historic trauma, racial trauma, lots of books that I'll also be sharing on that site as well.
That's awesome. So what kind of some parting words that you would have for our viewers? You know, what would you have anything you'd like to share?
Yes. That trauma is something that is an experience that affects everybody. At some point in life, every person in this world has experienced trauma. And the management of it is what we're here to talk about. We want to be able to manage so that not only are people surviving with trauma, but they are able to thrive despite the trauma.
Right.
And really being able to accomplish every single passion, desire, purpose in life that they've dreamed of, that they have been called for, so that they can actualize that purpose.
Wow, that's powerful. That's really powerful. I'm so glad that you were able to be here with us. Time really goes by when you're having fun. Because we're at the end of our show, but this was very informative, you know, and you have me thinking. I'm thinking in the back of my mind here, you know, you spark something in the back of my mind in terms of some of the work that I'm doing here also. But I wish you all the best in terms of the work that you're doing, and just continue to go out there and help people to fulfill their purpose and overcome these traumas that are holding them back from living, laughing, and loving. Yes, yes. Well, this is the end of our show. I really want to thank everyone for tuning in, and hopefully today you learned something about trauma. And if you're someone being impacted by trauma, you can get help. And please connect with us at Discover a New Future. We'd be happy to connect you with resources that are available here within the United States or within New Jersey. But again, thanks very much. And until next time, think positively.
Thank you.